I was a couple. The calendar invitation didn't have the Zoom link, so I had to go through the emails and find it. So I'm sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. Nice to see everyone. Welcome. My name is Ann Bossler. I'm the chair of the Policy and Funding Committee here. We have particular protocols for virtual meetings to ensure the highest possible level of transparency and access for our community. As a reminder, we are now allowing public comments to be provided for each agenda item. I'd like to ask my colleagues on this committee, if you would, please keep your video on throughout the meeting to help remain as accessible as possible to our audience. And I'll ask the same of the participating staff. We appreciate that. Now we're going to do a quick roll call to confirm commissioner attendance. When I call your name, if you would, please unmute yourself and say present. Commissioner Rebecca Smith, Commissioner Udoka Nwana, Commissioner Tyler Hughes.
Present.
Commissioner Tracy DeZenzo.
Present.
Thank you very much for your attendance. It's been noted, and thankfully we have quorum, so thank you for that. Also joining us today is city staff, including our executive director, Jonathan Bless, Chief of Civic Arts Strategies, Christine Jones, Senior Arts and Culture Funding Manager, Deanna Augustini, and our project manager, Bel Reza. Before we get into today's agenda, I'm going to call on Deanna to please review the guidelines with us for today's meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Bossler, and good afternoon, everyone. So in an effort to provide greater accessibility, members of the public, as mentioned, can join the webinar and provide virtual non-agenda and agenda comments in real time. Committee members, city staff, and authorized presenters are attending the meeting as panelists, and the meeting will function for them identically to a typical Zoom meeting. As a refresher, please note the buttons on the control bar at the bottom of the Zoom window. And the camera icon is to activate your video. The microphone is to mute and unmute. And please remember to stay muted when you're not talking and to unmute yourself when you speak. You will also see the chat window button. Please keep your chat window open at all times, as you will be using the chat to signal when you'd like to speak. We do recognize that there is a hand raising function. However, we're requested to type speak in the chat window for the record, and the chair will acknowledge requests in order. When wanting to make a motion, second a motion, or participate in a discussion, please type speak in the chat box, and Chair Bossler will call on you in the order entered. Please refrain from using the meeting chat for anything other than signaling that you like to speak in order to comply with the Brown Act. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. In an effort to provide greater accessibility, Okay, now we're going to move on to non-agenda public comment. The public was invited to submit public comment on agenda and non-agenda items via a web form accessible through the agenda and the Commission's website. Members of the public may also join this meeting as webinar attendees. If members of the public have submitted comments in writing via the web form, staff will read aloud the public comment submitted per city public comment protocol. I will call on Deanna to please read aloud any non-agenda public comment or to call on any attendees who would like to provide comment.
Thank you. So we didn't receive any written comments, but for those members of the public in attendance, you can now submit a comment if you would like. And if you'd like to do so, please raise your hand to indicate that you would like to comment. I will enable you to speak and send you a prompt to unmute yourself. When I do that, please state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes to provide comments, after which you will be placed on mute again. For anyone joining via the phone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and I will call you by the last 4 digits of your phone. When I call on you, please press *6 to unmute yourself. So now if anyone in the public would like to make a comment, please raise your hand and I'll let you speak. I don't see any, Chair Bossler.
Okay, thank you so much. Now we're going to move on to the chair's report. An action item would be the minutes for the special committee meeting on June 22nd. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve those minutes as they are? If you would, please type speak in the chat window and verbally state your name and make the motion. Commissioner DeZenzo?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you very much. Commissioner Hughes?
Second.
Okay, terrific. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'm now going to call your name. Please respond with yay, nay, or abstain. Remember, you do not have to have been present at the meeting to vote or discuss. Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Nawana, Commissioner Hughes,
Yay.
Commissioner Zenzo.
Yay.
All right, and I'm also a yay. Looks like we're unanimous. Deanna, if you would please read any public comment for the first item that was submitted in writing and call on any attendees who would like to provide comment for this particular item.
No comments were submitted. If any of the attendees would like to make a comment, please raise your hand now. No comments.
Okay. Let's see, I'm losing track here for just a second. So now we're asking for any public comment on which item?
So this item that we just did, so you can move to commission business, Chair Bossler.
Okay. As of today, there's nothing to report with respect to commission business, and we're going to be moving on to other reports. And my understanding is there's nothing else to report on that either. Is that correct at this time? I see heads nodding. I'll take that as an affirmative. Now we're going to move to staff reports, moving here at a brisk clip this morning. With respect to this item, I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Jonathan Gluss, to please share his report with us.
Thank you, Chair Bosler. It's great to see everyone. Happy Friday morning. Excuse me. We have a robust presentation just to give you an update on the work on the part of staff. I think I'd like to turn it over to Deanna to walk you through FY22 and FY23, and then I'll circle back with some general comments and updates about the larger philanthropic space beyond specifically our work. So with that, Deanna, why don't you move into updates, please?
Happy to, yes. So if we could go to the next slide, please. We're going to start with fiscal year 22 funding cycle updates. So as you may recall, funding recipients receive an agreement or a renewal letter, which they are asked to sign and submit to staff in order to initiate the multi-step process within the city, which will allow them to be reimbursed. Agreements and renewal letters have been sent out to all of fiscal year 22 awardees during the first week of July. And just as a reminder, fiscal year 22 started on July 1st of this year, 2021. And so sending those agreements out during the first week of July already represented a good accomplishment for staff, because we've been a few weeks ahead compared to previous years in sending out these documents. So many of the organizations that are receiving funds have already submitted signed agreements, and so we're in the process of already processing them. We want to really point out that also part of this is mainly thanks to the insurance requirement being waived for organizations this year. We are way ahead compared to previous years with the routing process of the agreements and of the renewal letters. And so this is great. We've heard great comments also on behalf of the organizations. Thank you for this change. We expect by the end of August to have finalized routing as many as a third of the total agreements that we receive. That means that these organizations will be able to request reimbursement for expenses they have already incurred since the beginning of the fiscal year, so since July 1st. and get their money ahead of time, basically, compared to previous years. In terms also of the second point that you see here, the COVID-19 pandemic response, we wanted to point out that the city is aware of the challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has caused for so many segments of our community, and in particular, the outsized impact on the field of arts and culture. You may be aware that in early August, the mayor directed $10 million in federal COVID relief funds to the San Diego Foundation, and the foundation added $2 million to that to make $12 million available to small businesses and nonprofits. And these relief funds, not funds for additional, these are relief funds, sorry, these are not funds for additional activities. The application period is open, and we will continue to get the word out about this key opportunity over the next few weeks. We're also in the process of updating our data from our current grantees about the financial impact of the pandemic on their organizations. You may remember that we contracted USD to conduct a survey in August of last year for our fiscal year 20 contractors, and USD is currently finalizing the collection of the same data for fiscal year 21 contractors as part of our mandatory fiscal year final report requirements. We anticipate having some of this data in September or October at the latest. We also acknowledge, of course, that the pandemic is not over and that our arts and culture organizations are still dealing with the repercussions of closures, financial loss, and now also being short of staff. So looking forward to the coming months and the questions around the impact of the Delta variant, we are committed to working really closely with all of our contractors and funding recipients. As we receive fiscal year 22 agreements, we have encouraged organizations to submit memos highlighting any changes in their scope of service or operations or any foreseeable adjustment to their scheduled events. We understand that due to the continuously evolving situation, organizations may not have a clear picture yet. For example, those that will be having events happening next spring. And at the same time, we strongly encourage organizations to maintain an open communication channel with us, with staff. The city is truly dedicated to supporting all of our awardees, and we ask of them to keep us informed as potential changes or new challenges may arise in order for us to offer timely and efficient support and answer to any questions, particularly again when it comes to CCSD projects for fiscal year 22, since there's still a requirement for an in-person component, which is exactly what we had also for fiscal year 21. And we worked with many organizations in addressing their concerns as to how they could meet that requirement. And we're planning on doing the same for fiscal year 22. Again, staff is available to provide advice, recommendations, and so that our awardees can meet our requirements while at the same time being in compliance with the county health directives. So these are updates for fiscal year 22 cycle. If any, I can stop here and have our commissioners, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask now, and then I can move forward to fiscal year 23 updates.
Looks like we can press on unless anybody, Commissioner Hughes, you do have comment?
Yeah, just one clarification. Did I correctly hear you, Deanna, saying that there is still going to be an in-person requirement?
That is correct. So yes, for CCSD projects, we still require some sort of in-person requirement during their event. It was the same requirement as last year. So for fiscal year 21, we've been working really closely with many organizations, which is why also we're stressing really the importance of keeping us informed. We want to really help organizations and awardees. Organizations have come up with very creative ways of still keeping that in-person meeting that in-person requirement, while at the same time making sure their communities, their staff, and audience also were safe. Some examples have been drop-offs, pickups of some of their materials, or being able to project in public places, whatever they were going to do, perform outdoors. So again, we're really here to help making sure that they can meet that requirement also for this year.
And I just want to make sure and confirm that we'll be sensitive to the conditions within the city with COVID, if that needs to be adjusted or re-looked at in terms of safety.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, terrific.
Great. So if there are no other questions, we can move forward to fiscal year 23 funding updates. And so we're gearing up to launch everything related to fiscal year 23 and guidelines. And if we can move to the next slide also, you'll see a little bit more details. So we have a lot of good news on a number of different fronts, and starting from, for example, panel recruitment for fiscal year 23 to increase in recruiting of new applicants and prospective applicants. And you may remember this slide, which is an update of what was shown to you during our last meeting in June. And it represents the administrative priorities for staff for fiscal year 23. And the work that we have been doing and are doing this summer and will continue to do in the fall. We anticipate that a City Council review of the proposed revisions to Council Policy 100-03 will be docketed for mid-September, and Jonathan may have more information later on. This has slowed the announcement for fiscal year 23 guidelines only of a few weeks. So we still expect for guidelines to be released in mid to late September, shortly after the final deliberations by City Council. So you also may recall our initiative related to fiscal sponsors. And so for the first time ever in July, we initiated a call for fiscal sponsors. We are still accepting responses to the RFI, and we extended the deadline to August 29th. So we encourage any nonprofit to apply. Currently, we are meeting with interested organizations and fielding questions and supporting with the submission of the RFI. And staff reached out to a list of over 30 existing fiscal sponsors, and we have announced the opportunity widely. And also want to thank commissioners for sharing this opportunity with your network. As a reminder, this is an opportunity again for all nonprofit organizations, not only the ones that are necessarily arts focused, and also for 501c6 organizations in San Diego and outside of San Diego, so that they can act as fiscal agents for CCSD applicants that may not meet eligibility requirements. We do encourage interested organizations to submit the RFI, which we want to clarify is not binding. So they would still, of course, have the decision power in terms of which organizations or events they want to represent and which not. And by joining the list of interested sponsors, they will be part of a tool for our applicants and a resource that we will have to share with them. We also still plan on hosting a dedicated workshop that will be focused on fiscal sponsorship, and that will happen in September. And our goal for this workshop is to allow fiscal sponsors also, the ones that replied to the RFI, to briefly introduce themselves at that time to kind of facilitate the matching and making sure that there's some networking happening between prospective applicants and interested fiscal agents. In relation to technical assistance and different workshops that we'll have, we're also scheduling and finalizing the full calendar for fall 21 of the numerous technical assistance opportunities that we'll be offering to our applicants. We are working closely with our council members to arrange at least one workshop hosted by every council member. And we've added a hands-on workshop specifically tailored to support organizations with the financial portion of the application, which we know it's always a very important and tough one for some organizations. So the total expected number of workshops is 13 as of now. This number includes 2 RFQ workshops, so 2 workshops that will really go through the guidelines and the whole application process. Like I said, 1 fiscal sponsorship 101 workshop also. This hands-on financial requirement workshop, which will focus only on the financial piece of the application, and then the 9 workshops that are co-hosted with council members. We will also still be offering one-on-one office hours that are scheduled to be released with the opening of the RFQ. Last year, we offered approximately 40 hours of one-on-one office hours, and this year we are planning on increasing that up to 50 hours and more if needed. Plus, we're also adding office hours offered by USD, specifically for the financial portion of the application again. So lots of opportunities for applicants to really get support as they are submitting their application, the first step of the application. Tied to the technical assistance, of course, is also the cultivation of new applicants. We have expanded the network of partners in the community and within the city. For example, we are seeking collaboration with the newly created mayoral boards and advisory groups, such as the Mayor's Black Advisory Group, the Asian Pacific Islander Advisory Group, the Latinx Advisory Group, and the LGBTQ Advisory Group. And other city departments have also been very responsive to our request for sharing our opportunities and open to collaborations that were part of some of our DEI goals, as you may remember. Chambers of Commerce, they're 501c6, so they're also on the outreach list, both in terms of the fiscal sponsorship, but also in terms of reaching out to new applicants, together with community and neighborhood groups like the City Heights Community Development Corporation, Mission Edge, Catalyst, just to name a few. The goal of these collaborations is to tap into new groups, share our opportunities with them, and provide the support they may need to apply to our funding programs. Staff has also been doing individual targeted outreach to organizations that, for example, did not complete the full application in the past, and to community leaders to help facilitate introductions to prospective applicants. And then we wanted to really call out also the fact that we're gearing up to launch very shortly the call for panelists that are interested in reviewing fiscal year 23 applications. And we expect for this call to go out early next week. Again, we're ahead of schedule with the launch of this call and plan on maintaining it open long enough to have the time to get as many submissions as possible, both locally, nationally, and binationally, so that we can maintain and improve also the changes that were done last year. Such as, for example, building panels based on expertise, a really intentional attention to DEI, follow national practices, national best practices, and of course, maintaining full transparency throughout the process. Panelist submissions will be brought to the Policy and Funding Commission during our December meeting. And commissioners are encouraged to share the opportunity with their network once it's released. Again, we're expecting to release it early this coming week, and we'll make sure to share the needed information with you as soon as it's available. If we go to the next slide, here's a quick recap of some of the key phases of our fiscal year 23 cycle and how it will also request your input and work as commissioners. So again, in August, staff is finalizing guidelines, launching the call for panelists, then moving into September in just a few weeks, few days. Guidelines will be released and the RFQ process will be open for 5 weeks. So from mid-September to late October approximately. November will focus on the eligibility review of applications by staff and followed also by the cure period, which will happen in December, and it's gonna last for 5 days as usual. That is when organizations will know if they're deemed eligible for funding and whether they're approved to renew their existing agreement with the city, or if they'll need to submit an RFP and go to panel. In December, as I mentioned, commissioners will ask to approve the pool of panelists during the policy and funding meeting. And then in January, staff will release the RFP process for 4 weeks. So we expect for the RFP to close sometimes in February. Panels will be held in March, and they'll be followed by staff's reporting on recommendations based on the outcome of the panels. And as you may remember, then during our April policy and funding meeting, you will be asked to vote on the rank recommendations brought to you by staff. And then those will be moved to the full commission for approval. So this is to give you an idea of what's coming in the near future and as late as next spring. If you have any questions, again, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Deanna. Before I move into the remainder of the staff reports, any questions, commissioners?
If I may, just a thought, Jonathan, just considering actually where we just came from, the last meeting we were in with Catalyst, I wonder if there is a opportunity there to leverage some of the new renewed interest in arts as a cross-sectional element of our society, and send out both the RFI as well as the call for panelists to Catalyst and to all of the individuals that they have been bringing in, both as panelists for their discussion and as participants in those groups. I think this might be an opportunity to capture some new voices and some new ideas.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Catalyst pushed out the call for fiscal agents on our behalf. But to your point, we're happy to ask them to disseminate on both the RFQ panel and panelists. Absolutely. Thank you for that. Well, I'll move into staff report then. First and foremost, I want to thank the funding team for all of the work. We were able to do considerable amount of additional work last summer, if you'll recall, in really expanding our outreach into the community that resulted in, I believe, 11, if not 14 new applications. So we're really committed to continuing that work with your help, of course. Within that frame of what it takes to revise guidelines, continue to build out the partnerships, et cetera, this is really quite a crunch period between July and I'd say late October, and then crunch period again a bit in December, but very much January, February, and then panels. As many of you know, the revised council policies that you all approved and recommended to City Council have not yet made it through City Council for approval. Staff has had a number of conversations with council members over the last month. We're very optimistic that it will move forward. they're simply concerned because this has not been opened in a number of years to make sure there's a thorough vetting by the council members themselves. We do anticipate that it will go to city council in September. So we'll keep you apprised of that. In particular, Tyler and Janet will keep you apprised of dates with city council. Of course, that decision slows the dissemination of the FY23 RFQ. So we are expecting that to be probably third, possibly fourth week of September. We'll keep you posted on all of that. To Tyler's point, in addition to this, all the good work that the funding team is doing to, as I said, continue to get the word out, build relationships in the community, we are co-hosting this Catalyst series. Thank you to all of you who attended the session this morning about intersection of art and justice, the justice system. Next month is health. And then after that is going to be focused more on community development. So eager to have you continue to be part of those conversations. You'll also receive an invitation within the next week or so about a joint summit that we will be hosting with the Tourism Authority on cultural tourism. That will be in mid-September. Excuse me. The Tourism Authority suggested that we do this together in anticipation of not just reopening, but also these benchmark events of bricks and mortar openings that we're seeing. So we'll get you more information on that, but we're delighted to be working with the Tourism Authority in that space. Want to make sure you're all aware of the fact that the County of San Diego did in fact on Monday approve in concept establishing a county arts agency. Huge step for the county. That really, there were so many people community-wide, county-wide that were involved in that initiative going back a year at this point, building on the good work of a decade or more of intentional work leading up to this. That is just a 90-day window that the chief operating officer has, chief administrative officer has to come back to the supervisors with a full work plan. Excuse me. We are not directly involved in that because it's a county agency. But I do know that the county is going to be asking for input. So one or more of you may be tapped for your input and expertise in this space. But all in all, very, very, very exciting, game changer for the county in regards to arts and culture, but also just having a county partner at the table, I believe will also alleviate some pressure on us as currently the largest public art agency in the county. Also wanted to mention FY24, while the funding team is focused on FY23, we're also looking at FY24. Top ticket item that you all have identified over the spring and early summer is working with an outside consultant to consider alternatives to the AOI system. We very much want to dig into that in the spring, but I want to give you a bit of an alert right now. For us to do that work, it will take a number of months to bring a consultant on board and to do the thoughtful assessment that is necessary. And we'll have to do this work very much transparently and working with you all. But we have a number of staff transitions taking place. I think you all know that Carla has moved on to a great position, or could not be happier for her. And Deanna is leaving us for a few months on maternity leave. So firstly, congratulations, Deanna. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. I'll be back. Tyler, I saw your face.
She is coming back. We know where she lives. So no, Deanna's already become a indispensable part of the team. So we're eager to have her back in January. But that does mean that we are going to be short-staffed in this. Thank you, Tyler. We're going to be short-staffed in the short term. And by short term, probably 3 to 4 months. So we can very much commit that FY23 will move without any flaws. We'll continue closing FY21, FY22. Absolutely. When we meet again, I can come back with some further details about timing on an outside consultant for looking into the AOI. So we can bring that back for discussion with you all probably in October. Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
This is probably a stupid question, but are there any other jurisdictions, any cities around the United States that has a funding mechanism that we would want to emulate, that we could just say, you know what, we're not going to have to do a long consultancy with somebody to help us develop our own, but instead we just want to copy and paste from Seattle, St. Louis, or Sheboygan, somebody else that we can just steal from that has already done the due diligence, so we don't have to invest, because we're going to be a little bit behind the 8 ball in terms of staff timing. So we don't have to delay very much. And mazel tov, mazel, Deanna.
That's a great question, and absolutely. I'm not familiar with Sheboygan's model, but there are definitely some very clean, easy to manage models elsewhere. My concern is we can very easily bring 2 or 3, 4 models to you in just a couple months. We want to spend time running the comparison on what these could look like in regards to the organizations that we fund. Are we talking about actually shifting allocation amounts, or is it just a tool, a distribution tool? So yeah, I think we can keep it. I think what you're saying is don't overly complicate this. Yeah.
Yeah, to whatever degree possible. But I fully understand that it has to be something that meets San Diego's unique place right now, especially because we need to incorporate the DEI work that we've been doing and to address the historic underfunding that we've had. So fully understood.
Yeah, and there is to that point, there's a couple really excellent models. Boston, based on their cultural planning process 4 or 5 years ago, they completely reimagined the mechanics of their funding program. So that off the top of my mind, that's a current reimagining of a funding program that we'd certainly want to look at. LA County's done a really good job over the last 5 years. Right. Probably Portland probably. So yes, we can, and in fact, before even bringing a consultant on, we could do some staff level work just to bring some models to you so you can start thinking about it. I'm sorry, Tyler.
Sorry, I was muted. That'd be great. That would be lovely. And please forgive my dismissive attitude towards our friends up in Los Angeles. You know, just I hate us being the second tier to them.
I hear you. And Chair Bosler, that is all of my report.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for that. Deanna, do we need to check and see if there's any public comment with respect to all that was just covered?
Yes, so nothing was submitted, but we do have attendees. So if any of the attendees would like to speak now, please raise your hand and I'll unmute you. And I see none, so no comments.
Okay, thank you so much. Any last item up is the question of any new business for future agendas. Okay, well, with that, we will adjourn this meeting of the Policy and Funding Committee. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay safe out there, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
You too.